And joining us now is former Democratic Congressman Joe Crowley, the former chair of the House Democratic Caucus, and former RNC Communications Director Doug Heye. So, Joe, first to you. Will the DNC, the Rules Committee is dominated by Harris people, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. What about the role of Nancy Pelosi? She was known to have concerns. She said that on Morning Joe. I've been reporting that. But Joe Biden is seeing her as the behind-the-scenes, puppet master of the opposition in the House. Mm-hmm. Whereas I've been told that she was listening to a lot of House members, that it was coming up,
Yeah, I think that's right, Andrea. I think that she was listening to her members, especially those folks on the front line in those districts that are really competitive. There are very few districts that actually are competitive, and she was listening to those folks.
But he's supposed to be so furious with her, and he and Pelosi were so close, closer than he was with Barack Obama, because, arguably, he really appreciated.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I can understand that, and at the same time, he's made his decision. It's an historic decision.
And she's all in?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, that he'll be able to look back, and I think he has made the right decision for the country. That's what he's always been about. He's always put his country first, and it's so admirable. He's a person of character. The other guy is a character. This man has character. He has integrity. He gave a gift to the American people by doing this. I think he'll go down as one of the greatest presidents because of this. He had a very successful, at least first 2 years in office, and got a lot done, a lot accomplished for the American people. And now I think, Nancy's a leader. Nancy is someone who's deliberative. I think she doesn't want a coronation. I think she wants to make sure that the integrity of the office itself is maintained, and I think that's admirable as well.
Doug, it's Chris Jansing back in New York, and obviously, by all reporting, this is not what Donald Trump or his team wanted to happen. They wanted to run against Joe Biden. That is not going to be the case. What challenges do you see running against Vice President Harris present for him and present for his campaign? I've been a little surprised, and I wonder if you are, that they haven't seemed to be very focused so far on Harris. Most of, for example, what we've heard on social media from the former president is attacking Joe Biden with conspiracy theories like maybe he never really had COVID anyway.
Well, look, Donald Trump likes to kick people when he's down. That's a truism that we've seen consistently over the past few years. So sort of surprising, but not also out of character for Donald Trump. But for the campaign now, they have to make different strategies and different tactics. Clearly, their number one issue against Joe Biden was going to be his age. That's gone away. Whatever you're going to criticize Kamala Harris on, age is not it. But we so often in politics, we start by attacking an opponent's strength. And how many times have we heard this morning Jim Clyburn just use it a couple of times? Prosecutor. When we know that Kamala Harris is going to use the case to say, I'm a prosecutor, I'm tough on crime, Donald Trump's a criminal. I think you're going to see the Donald Trump campaign and the RNC research department, which works with the communications department where I served at the RNC, has been spending not weeks, but months and years going through Kamala Harris's role as a prosecutor. People will tell you she was a moderate prosecutor. That's moderate for San Francisco Democrats, which is not really where the rest of the country is. So you'll see the RNC and the Trump campaign really pick apart where she went wrong in individual cases. We're going to hear people who she failed to prosecute or lost cases on become household names pretty quickly. And I think the other thing that we'll see the Trump campaign do is try and make some kind of tack around the issue of abortion. That's another place where you hear Democrats talk about how she's going to prosecute a case against Donald Trump. Clearly, there's a weakness there in especially swing states and swing districts. As Congressman Crowley mentioned, there are less of those, but they're critically important in North Carolina and in Arizona, Pennsylvania, certainly, places like that. That's a place for the Trump campaign to try and test this sort of moderate or nuanced ground that Donald Trump is trying to take. He doesn't do nuance very often, which means it's a difficult place for him. Democrats are going to be aggressive there, no doubt.
And we're hearing, Joe, via social media, as we hear most things these days, from John Fetterman, a big supporter of Joe Biden. He says that he is all in now, proud to support and be all in for the next president. Kamala Harris, and then he retweeted the Harris for President logo, which says, "Let's win this." But let's talk about what we really know about what polls tell us. NBC's polling taken before Joe Biden dropped out and backed Kamala Harris shows her doing better with black, female, independent voters. Donald Trump with white and male voters. How is that informing strategy right now?
Well, I don't think that's shocking. I do think that she would be the first African-American woman to run for president of the United States. It's historical. And so I do think who she picks as a vice presidential candidate, and, you know, people tend to say that who the vice president is doesn't really matter. They focus on the top of the ticket. I do think under these circumstances that people will look at that number 2 slot because they're going to be looking at those states of importance. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, not to mention maybe North Carolina or elsewhere. Not that they win North Carolina. Arizona, certainly, too. Mark Kelly is a great friend, and he's a national treasure and hero. And there are, you know, we look at Kentucky in terms of, we may not win Kentucky, but bring someone like Beshear into the picture, and it just shows that Democrats are looking at the Midwest, are looking at the Rust Belt, are looking at those parts of the country that some have suggested Democrats have neglected. I don't think that's the case. But here's an opportunity to do something extraordinary in terms of the overall ticket. I think that's what people are looking towards.
And I've just been handed that John Fetterman, who, as you know, was one of the early and most passionate supporters of Joe Biden, has just endorsed Kamala Harris. Proud to support and be all in for the next president, Kamala Harris. Let's talk about, Doug Heye, some of these governors and who do you think that Republicans would be most concerned about, and who do you think would best attract the white male, particularly suburban voters that Kamala Harris is having trouble with in states like Michigan, states like Pennsylvania, and the red states? And let me read a couple of these off to you. We just saw them in the graphic. You can put the graphic back up again. Governors Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, Andy Beshear of Kentucky, Roy Cooper of North Carolina, Arizona's Senator Mark Kelly, we just talked about here, have all been mentioned as potential VP picks. So which do you think might help her most?
Yeah, it demonstrates they have a deep bench, right? We could be talking presidential politics with a lot of these. And being a Tar Heel, I'll say good things about Roy Cooper, of course.
He's term limited, and he's very popular, but he's 67 years old. Is that an asset?
I think it's an asset because it means he's seasoned without being elderly at the concerns that we had about Donald Trump and certainly also Joe Biden. But it's a deep bench. Certainly, you know, Arizona with Mark Kelly helps you in suburban Phoenix, places like Mesa and Scottsdale. Josh Shapiro, where you're looking to maximize the voting in Pennsylvania around especially suburban Philadelphia, very important. And then you talk about Raleigh and Charlotte. All of these areas, this is a good problem for Democrats to have. But also, again, be mindful to our previous question, is that the RNC Research Department is now going through all of their records, and they've all made mistakes that we're not aware of, but we're going to find out in coming weeks.
But they've all run before. And one thing about Arizona and Mark Kelly is he's the only one in this group with some foreign policy experience as a veteran and former astronaut, and the Gabby Giffords incredible story, as well as being a border state on immigration. So.
Well, one thing that governors always do is they go on foreign trade missions. And they'll go to India, they'll go to Japan and say, look at me, I have foreign policy experience, where it isn't real foreign policy experience. They'll all want to emphasize this as they demonstrate very loudly and very much on TV that they're behind Kamala Harris.
And Mark's a great friend and a great guy. And Gabby, I think, you know, she also, there was an attempted assassination on her. But one other name that's not on that list is Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who I also think should be added. He also has military experience.
He endorsed
Mark Kelly's experience isn't international, it's intergalactic, by the way. Big difference.
That's real foreign affairs.
Real foreign, right.
He saw Russia from his spaceship. Yeah.
Doug and Joe, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.